You people in the Midwest, we feel for you. We've got Bob Tripathi with bobtripathi.com here, and he's backed by his team. And we've got Mike Petsas here from Implementation Engineers. So today we're going to be talking all things around digital marketing and how to expand your digital marketing footprint. So we're excited to have you with us. We're glad you joined us. Our agenda will include an introduction of our wonderful guest speakers, and then we'll have a discussion all around digital marketing and how it has transformed implementation engineers and really helped get them on board with their website, and some digital marketing tactics that we'll be discussing. And then at the end, be sure and put in your questions for a Q&A. So if you have any questions, just be sure and type them in, and we'll be sure and get all those answered for you. And thanks again for joining us. We're so glad to have you today. So one of Bob's favorite sayings, he has many of them, is B2C or B2B or B2C. At the end of the day, we are all marketing to humans. So to come up with content that's compelling, that's interesting, that's informative and enlightening, that's what marketing is all about.
Yeah, and just to speak out of turn, Davy, since you mentioned it, the reason for that is, this is one of the most common questions people ask, oh, do you do B2B or B2C? And people think those are two separate beasts, which, tactically some of it is the same. And after getting this question from so many years, 10 plus years, right?
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? We're all humans, right? We all bleed red at the end of the day. So just to give you some context, so.
By the way, I'm Deborah Warner, and I do a lot of the content writing and some of the project management for Bob. So he's got quite a great team here, and we just love working on all the marketing initiatives. So Mike is the SVP of Sales and Marketing for Implementation Engineers, and he has 15 plus years of experience leading large-scale performance excellence programs for industries in mining, aerospace, manufacturing, and oil and gas. His experience is strategy development and deployment, and implementation.com is their website. They are a 50-year-old company that has helped hundreds of large companies, manufacturing, oil companies all over the globe with their initiatives to help run their company smarter, better, more efficiently, and effectively. Fascinating company. So be sure and visit their website at implementation.com to learn more about this fascinating company. Mike holds a master's degree in integrated supply chain management from the University of Wisconsin and a bachelor's in international business from Eckhart College, Florida, which is also where Bob went. He currently lives in Gig Harbor with his wife and 3 young kids up in Washington. So glad to have you here, Mike, and thank you so much for joining us on this cold day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Certainly. Okay, and we've got Bob, who's going to be talking about all things digital marketing. He is the founder of bobtripathi.com. Previously, he ran an online digital marketing education company called Instant E-Training, which helped people learn all about social media, digital marketing initiatives, SEO, and anything that has to do with digital marketing. Prior to that, he worked with large brands like Discover Financial, Sears Holding, Assure Software, and others, helping them achieve massive growth through their digital marketing efforts. He's an entrepreneur. He has co-authored a book and speaks at lots of conferences. He'll be at the Digital Summit conferences all over the nation coming up. So visit our website at bobtripathi.com to find out about his speaking events. He has hosted hundreds of webinars in the past, and we're excited that he's hosting this one for us again today. He's a world traveler and currently goes between San Francisco and Dallas, where we're located now. He recently moved here so he could be closer to his young daughter. So let's get into the nuts and bolts of this. And so Mike, With implementation engineers, they are an older company. What was the tipping point for making the switch to digital marketing for you guys?
Yeah, so I think the reason for making the switch and the tipping point for us really was, we're an older company, but in traditional consulting, management consulting, operational consulting, the sales model was always make cold calls, make dials, get a meeting, and go sell.
Mm-hmm.
There's some challenges with that. One of the challenges we found was when a salesperson retires or leaves or goes to a different company, they take all of their leads with them. So we lose that book of business. We also aren't providing value to our customers between the time we make calls. So when we sit down in front of a customer, they have a great experience with us. They learn about what we do. They get some insights from us. But the problem is it's only an hour once every 6 months. So we really wanted to make a transition into digital marketing, one, to have a front-end engine that provides leads when they're ready, so that we can nurture them along the way, and two, just for growth. And so we saw the markets were changing. People aren't responding as well to cold calling. We had to do something a little bit differently. So, about a year and a half ago, I was in operations. I wasn't a sales and marketing leader at that time. I said, hey, Mike, can you come up with a better way to do what we're doing? So I actually had to reach out and find out, well, what are the trends in the industries? How do we take the good things that we're doing today, but add to it with a digital platform and digital marketing?
Okay, great. And a lot of companies are switching to digital marketing as well. You nearly have to right now with everybody having their phones, their computers. Can you speak to that a little bit, Bob?
Yeah, it's funny you said that, because what Mike said is moving from a traditional business way of doing business or acquiring customers to a new way of doing it. Back in 2000, when I actually started in this space, back in the day, we used to call it online marketing. And one of the most common questions I used to get back then is, why do I need a website? Right? My business is doing great, whatnot. And 2018, 2019, 2020 around the corner, what we do see is about 45% of all marketing spend across, TV, radio, whatnot, experiential marketing, 45% is in digital marketing. So even right now, if you have a local businesses, you still have to make the switch to the digital side of things. And the problem usually that we encounter right now is not so much on why digital marketing, but how to do it right.
Okay.
So people know the importance of digital marketing, but there are so many things in digital marketing, as you know, and it's essentially, where do we start? And there's so many things to it, so you can go in all different direction. But I think the biggest change is exactly what Mike mentioned, is like, you want to move away from the traditional way of acquiring customers and building your business into the new way of doing it. And then it's like, how you match the two, and not take one out completely, and basically balance it out. So
Okay, great. So what are some factors to consider when hiring in-house teams to bring everybody in-house and with a whole marketing team versus working with an outside expert or agency on all your digital marketing initiatives?
Yeah, so from my personal experience, I had a choice to make. Do I work with outside experts, or do I start building a team?
Right.
A couple things came into play. One is timing. How long does it take to get a team up and running, to find the right people, the right talent, train them? Hopefully they know what they're doing. You're going to have some turnover, and you're going to have to manage this new team and put it together, and hopefully it works out, right? So you're kind of hoping that the skills that you hire are the right ones to drive your business forward. The other thing is cost. So I had to weigh, what is the cost of doing it internally versus externally?
Mm-hmm.
And internally, I've got to hire full-time employees that I have to keep on the books for years, and hopefully that the return on investment is there.
Right.
Also, there's risk with bringing 5, 6 people on board with no structured marketing program in place. So that's when I looked at the inside piece. The external piece, again, you do have some risk. Is the group going to fit within your organizational culture? So that's something important. So will the expert fit into our culture? When we reached out to Bob, it was, will you be able to assimilate to our team and understand what we do? And we went through the process of looking at 4, 5, 6 different companies. And one of the primary differences when I saw some of the non-boutique but agency models, I had to weigh, are they really going to be there for me and help me day in and day out? Or are they going to give me their model and say, this is what we're doing, we don't care what you think? And what I found is that seemed to be the agency model. The other model I saw is there's lots of freelancers that are very good at what they do, but they were very specific skill sets. So I said, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to hire an external team if I don't want to take the risk internally. But then I'm going to need 4 or 5 different companies that specialize in different pieces of the digital marketing space. So those are some of the things that I looked at when evaluating it. So it was risk, cost, speed.
Okay, risk, cost, and speed. And so BobTripathi.com is like an extension of your marketing team, like a digital marketing arm. So they handle a lot of your marketing?
Yeah, correct.
All your digital, okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bob, you want to talk a little bit about working with Mike?
Yeah, it's not just about like my experience, I'm going to share my experience, is not just working with implementation, but in my previous life when I used to work for Discover, I built a in-house SEO team, in-house search marketing team. And this in-house versus outsource has been a discussion forever. So just like Mike mentioned, some of the points that people or companies evaluate, and what we do see is, for example, I worked in a very large organization, and you are working with every agency under the sun. And the what happens then is, even if you build an in-house team, and large companies can afford to have many people per se, but that's not the case, because everyone is resource constrained. So there are pros and cons to both models, and one right thing is, how fast do you want to get off your program off the ground, right? That's number one. The number two is how fast you can do hiring in order to get there. And hiring, as you very well know, is always a challenge. Number one is hiring, number two is if they're going to perform, and then number three is if they're going to stay. So do you want to go with all those things? It doesn't matter even if you're in a big company or a large company. So I'll give you my example. When I was at Discover, which is a large company, is we brought SEO in-house, right? So the reason I was able to bring it in-house is we saw that we needed to build SEO as part of the process at Discover into every business unit. So it has to be part of the culture. And same with paid search. So if you take about search engine marketing and then social media later on in 2008 when we started that program. So essentially what you look at is how much of a culture difference you can make, because these days, as you asked earlier, digital marketing is part of business, right? So that means there is not one central agency or one central person who should have all the knowledge, but everyone should chip in. So it's not siloed. So what we ended up creating at Discover was a center of excellence. And when you have a center of excellence model, you have in-house experts, but you're still working with agencies, because things like campaign management, automation, your SEO link building, you cannot hire those people. So you have to work with an external partner or an expert who can help you do that. So, you look at mid-sized companies or you look at large companies, I think there is a balance, so it's not which is good, one or bad, but there is a balance, and then how fast you want to go and get things done, so hopefully I answered your question.
Okay, great. Yeah. So,
and by the way, just to talk on that, this slide that you just showing,
yes.
It takes a village, as I like to call it. So when at us as we, Bob Tripathi, we started working with Mike and his company at Implementation Engineer. It's not that only one person was able to do it. So in the type of things that you end up doing, you need a team of about 6-7 people.
Right.
And if a company has to bring this practice in house, whether it be digital or content marketing or search or anything, you have to hire quite a few people, because one person, so you can hire people at a strategic level, or you can hire people at an execution level. Well, somebody who's at a strategic level, they may not be ready to get their hands dirty. And even if they are, they cannot do so many things at one time. It's just not possible. And then if you hire somebody at a very implementation level, then you can't be able to do a strategic level. So when we started working, we brought a whole team together, including you, who produces content, to work on this account. So as I always say, it basically takes a village. So
Right. Designers, SEO, developers, a whole staff to get everything done.
Yeah, so true.
So what are the building blocks for building a digital marketing strategy? Let's talk a little bit about that. You want to go to the next slide so we can discuss that a little bit, Bob?
Is this question for me or Mike?
This question is for you, Bob. Like, what are some of the building blocks that you put in place for implementation.com when you were building their digital marketing strategy?
And can I just say one thing about this, Debbie, as well? So the interesting thing is the preconceived notions I had about what the building blocks were. You do one thing and it's great. Then you realize there are many tactics that are required to have an effective marketing strategy and implementation. So my lack of knowledge luckily was supplemented by Bob, because we would have done just one thing expecting good results. And we, in fact, before he came on board, we did. And there was no results. Simply send emails and you hope you get something back. And we found you have to do other things to actually bring a lead in. And
digital marketing is so organic, it just keeps growing and growing. So you need the design aspect, the new content aspect, the website aspect. So can you speak to that a little bit, Bob?
Yeah, so actually Mike hit the nail. It's classic, right? And Steve Jobs said it. If you ask the customer what they want, they don't know. And
they don't know exactly what they need until you're in the mix of it.
Yes. So basically you has to come in. So what we try to do, as you know, Debbie, because you produce so much of our content, is we try to educate, like webinars like this or podcasts like this. We try to educate folks. So, when we started discussing with Mike initially with what the problem areas were, we were looking at things like, okay, where is the business and where it should be going, and not at a tactical level. And, then based on your business goals and what you want the company to be in the next 1 year, 2 years, 5 years down the road, then you can actually devise a plan. So most people try to go very tactic happy, but instead, if you look at objectives and goals and then backtrack it, reverse engineer it, that's the approach I took with Mike when we started discussing about it. And exactly right. So most of the times you think it's we are spending money on paid search or paid advertising, so we need to do better. But sometimes people don't know that it's not that you need to do. You need to build up your organic presence. You need to build up your content, so your reliance on paid advertising is less. So essentially that's what Mike is trying to refer to. But since you asked about this, and we went over this yesterday while we were prepping for this, this is some of the building blocks that you start with. At the very foundation is your infrastructure, like your automation platforms. If you have it, if you are in a B2B lead gen model, then your automation platform is very critical. And if you to go on Google, the most common question is, which is the best automation platform? Should I choose HubSpot or Marketo? Right? Or whatever the other smaller vendors are. or allocate in some cases. So infrastructure is critical. Once you have that, then the second piece of digital marketing is what we like to call it, the tactical side of it, your search, your social, your email, things like that. And then that's after that, we worked with Mike and his team to think of a lead nurturing and a lead generation campaign. See, in B2B, it's all about lead nurturing, right? And then at the end of the day, the goal for implementation engineer was not to do some tactics and some bells and whistles with some new website, but it was to align with sales and marketing to close more deals and generate more leads. So these are some of the building blocks that we see in B2B. Mike, am I on? Did you right? Are you on target on this?
Yeah, correct. And actually, the first building block that we had was the sales and marketing alignment. So we got together to make sure we were on the same page, because if we're doing marketing activities and sales isn't aligned, they're the ones that are going to go out and try to bring the customers in. So that was really important for the approach, was us sitting to get together with the sales team and figuring out, what are we going to do as a company? Where are we going? Where is our growth going to be? Where are we going to target? And so that messaging was important right from the start. And that's really the first thing that we did.
Okay, great. And looking at the long-term objectives, 5 years in the future and things like that?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so one of the first things that Bob and Mike looked at was their audience for implementation engineers. And so they came up with some marketing personas, which included in their industry the different people who might recommend them, do research about them, and then people who might approve the contracts, and then the decision makers. So you want to talk a little bit about that, you guys?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was gonna start. So we talked about traditionally, some of the things that we would do in our tactics, which I think is common. This is not unique to us. It was just throughout the industry. You go to the decision maker, and that's where you spend your time. You go and you set a meeting with a decision maker. You want that person to be the approver, right? You don't have the recommenders in this traditional model. So 20, 30 years ago, that was true. One person made all the decisions for the companies that you were selling into. Digital is quite a bit different, and the world is changing, where we do have people that influence decisions. And that's where Bob and I think, Bob, you put a lot of effort into us thinking about who are we actually selling to and who's going to recommend and approve projects that we're presenting.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Because what traditionally everyone starts thinking is the top-down approach, right? You hit the CEO, you hit the COO, you hit the CMO, and they're gonna make all the decisions, which is great. But in many cases, what happens is you have to influence folks at the managerial level, at a specialist level, which are known as the recommenders or influencers, right? Because many times, like for example, in our world, in the digital marketing world, a lot of people are looking for a digital marketing agency or a company, and it usually it's not the role of a CEO, but he assigns that project to somebody that, hey, we need somebody to work with, right? More or less. And everyone influences it, and everybody listens to it. And what you just said earlier was it was different in 60s and 70s, right? The workplace has changed. The workplace has become more collaborative than what it was 40 years back. So everyone's opinion counts, obviously. So that means all the decisions are made by 5 or 6 stakeholders. So your job as a marketer is to look who those 5, 6 stakeholders are across the spectrum and try to create marketing tactics, strategies, targeting to those 5, 6 stakeholders, whoever they are. And so, yeah, as Mike mentioned, that is the first thing we did. is not just pull out a list of all CEOs, but actually looked at who this are, and based on that, we ended up building the website. The screen that you're showing right now, this is the old website, and then based on the new personas, we ended up building the website, of course, but even making sure what each element is, and on the website too.
So having a good handle on your personas helps you target your audience and create your messaging, and kind of informs your marketing across the board when you do your marketing personas.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I will ask you that question. You produce so much content. How do you go about it? You work on personas, right?
Yeah, and depending on who your audience is, if you have a very clear in your head about who you're marketing to, if you're looking at decision makers, it may be ebooks or thought leadership papers. If you're marketing to influencers, it may be webinars like this or YouTube videos. So depending on your audience in that industry, it really helps inform your message, because you know exactly the audience you're writing for, which is like the first step. Who's your audience for any type of writing or content?
Yeah, and the other thing I would add to that, Devi, is also everyone's pain points are different. The pain point of a CMO and a CEO is very different than a pain point of a marketing specialist or somebody at an analyst role. So, but you're right.
So Mike, what are the best practices for creating company-wide digital marketing buy-in? How did you get everybody on board?
Yeah, so I think I'd mentioned previously about it was important to bring sales and marketing together, right? And we brought the leadership team together as well. And getting the alignment with that group was very important. The next thing was we selected a number of different people across functions to be a part of the team. And that was really important because everyone had ideas on what the website should look like, what our branding should look like, what type of marketing tactics we should use. So we put together a cross-functional team, our own influencers, if you will, and some of our leaders to work together. And the first thing we had to do was, I have a propensity to want to boil the ocean. Let's go solve world hunger and boil the ocean. And Bob said, wait a minute, we've got to get some wins under our belt. So we actually started small. Let's show that we can put a plan together in the next 2 weeks, put something together, get it done, and see the results. And so it's very important to get quick wins under your belts. And that's extremely important in what we did. And also making people a part of this, because we've got great insight from people who are meeting with our clients all the time. They should be a part of our marketing team. So we actually see our entire company as part of the marketing team.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I just want to add in, and thanks, Mike. I forgot about all that. But the power of small wins is so critical. Whatever you're doing, it doesn't matter how likable you are or how friendly you are, but the people start respecting your work and your initiatives once you show them some small wins. And that traditionally what happens in organizations is people just go out for the top level goal, and they just go chasing after that. But the real value is you look at those small goals, whatever it is. And if you are in a large business and you have 6 different business units, take the smallest business unit, right, and then make the biggest impact, because sometimes you can make big impact with a smaller project or a smaller business unit. Now, and then take that data and then create a company-wide buy-in depending on the size. Same, it works with digital marketing. That's exactly what we did. We worked on small projects, we showed the wins, and that's when people start believing you, right?
Right, building the trust.
Yeah, through results. And once you show the results, then they start trusting you. Now then they're gonna hear you, what you did. And yeah, this slide that you just went on, Debbie, this is part of a small viral-ish type of video we created for implementation engineers. But basically all the employees, the team members, the directors, the VPs, they all chipped in and created this small little video, and that only happens when everyone is bought into the process, you know.
Mhm.
uh, so yeah uh, so yeah, I can't talk more about it. So yeah.
Okay. And what are some top digital marketing tactics that you used at implementation? You want to talk a little bit about that, Mike? And then we'll have Bob discuss some digital marketing tactics in general.
Yeah, sure. I think for us, it was, we needed to have a better foundation. So that was
Okay.
a big part of it. Do we have a website that is up to par, that matches our personas? And then for us, it was content next. And I know Bob will go into a bit in the content piece, and Debbie, you've helped a great deal with that as well. But what are the things that we want to build to show who we are? And it's really tough when you're in a service industry,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't have a tangible product, right? Our people provide services, and it's fantastic, and we do a great job. But how do
Mm-hmm.
you get that across to potential clients? So building out the content for us and getting that to our current customers and potential customers was extremely important.
So you're positioned as a thought leader
Correct.
because y'all do some fantastic consulting work all across the globe. It's so fascinating and impressive. Uh, y'all do so many things. So
Yeah.
those digital marketing tactics support your efforts. Go ahead, Bob.
No, I was just gonna say, and not just working fantastically, but some of the clients that they have are really big enterprise companies.
Yes.
So then that means that the type of content that you asked earlier about different personas is, when you create content, the language has to match that audience, right? So if you're talking to a CEO of a huge company with 100,000 plus employees, the language that you have to bring in into that piece of content has to be very rich, you know, has to be at that level. So when we started, since you're asking what are the top digital marketing tactics, what we thought was, you know, how can we do more with less, if you will, you know. So the easiest thing to do for most people would be to go out on Google and buy up some ads on paid search on Google AdWords, or buy Facebook display ads. So we didn't do that. We went the organic route, which is hard, and it takes time, but that is the hard. We took the hard things first. So we created tons of content. Yeah, this slide, exactly. So for example, on implementation.com, we created tons of different categories of content, like case studies, white papers, webinars like this one, ebooks, and blog, which you contribute a lot. And the goal was to create a lot of these resources, and give it to people, you know, and that is going the organic route. So I would think content work really well um, uh, for implementation. Mike, do you think
Well,
that?
Yeah,
the
I think
company has so many great subject matter experts that contribute to this too, consultants that write, and they're just amazingly smart people. So be sure and check out all their resources. They're just wonderful. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I think there's so many things we've done over the last 50 years and thousands of different projects that you sometimes lose sight of how important it is to our clients. It was, great for us. We move on to the next one. We solve one difficult problem and tackle the next one. And sometimes we forget to share that with other people. So it's also being current. So one of the tactics is, as trends change within an industry, going from slowdown to growth, and
Mm-hmm.
making sure that we talk about the great things that we've done to help our clients in a growth period. It's important to not only have the historic content, but also contemporary content that, the problems we're solving today.
So some of the case studies may talk about some companies that they worked for, which the stories are just amazing on how they can bring a company into productivity, help their operations, things like that. So they've got just a wealth of ebooks and case studies and white papers that really help tell the story. So check it out. Really, really fun stuff.
Yeah, I mean, what it basically means is you showed the slide, Debbie, where you have three different personas,
Mm-hmm.
and as you very well know, the goal of creating these different resources is each persona is gonna be attracted to different type of content. So somebody at a CEO level, C-suite level,
Mm-hmm.
they wouldn't be sitting on a webinar. Probably they'll watch the recording, but
Right.
they are more prone, or they're more likely to download your ebook that you created, which is the 10 ways or 5 ways for performance excellence, and they will just
Mm-hmm.
browse through it, right?
Right.
And somebody at a researcher space, analyst space, they might listen to webinar, they might join the webinar. So that is what it is. And yeah,
And
this
okay,
slide I
okay.
think is repurposing.
Yeah, repurposing content. So this is a great way to make your marketing lean and use it in a lot of different places. And it also generates leads. So you want to talk a little bit about that, Mike?
Yeah, so one of the challenges we have is we spend a lot of time on client sites where, we're quite busy, and we don't always have the time to contribute to the development of new content. So one of the things that we began doing was repurposing content. So having one event or something like a webinar, and then adding to it and modifying it for different, you know, for posts on our blog or for LinkedIn or short bite-sized videos. And I think that's really important because there are people that consume information in different ways. Myself, I don't want to read a 30-page white paper, but if you give me the five or eight key bullet points in an insights blog post, I'm going to review that. So that was something really important that we did over the last year.
Wow, it looks like you've got a lot of resources and some great content there.
Yeah, and I think, the point is how can we do more with less?
Yeah.
Because doesn't matter the size of the company, the enterprise, the mid-size or startups, everyone is resource constrained, and so everyone has the same problem. And you really cannot create new content, like, tons of content. So what you have to do is take a top level content, like what we started doing for implementation engineers was we started creating a webinar, and out of those webinars, which was the top level content, we started repurposing that into a blog post. We ended up creating into an ebook, an industry insight / white paper, social media post, and things like that. And that's really the trick about content. Otherwise you will just end up on a perpetual infinitely producing content which is not scalable. So
Right. So how much budget do you allocate to your paid marketing versus the organic lead generation that you've done a lot here for implementation.com? You want to
is
talk a little bit about that, Bob, about paid marketing versus organic lead generation?
Yeah, as I said, I'm a big believer into organic.
Yeah.
I really think paid is just optimizing it. It's also the lazy way of doing marketing. It's very easy to pay money and buy traffic, right? Yeah, that's what it comes out to. And that doesn't mean that it doesn't have a place for that. So typically what we recommend is have a split of 30-30-30, where you have 30% paid marketing,
Okay.
you have what do you call it, um, you have about um, I would say another 30% in the content side of it, the
Uh-huh.
organic. And then you have another 30% on your owned side of things, like owned media side of things, like your content marketing, your
Mhm.
email marketing.
Mhm.
And that's how you basically have to have a pie where you have equal distribution among organic, your content, your email, and then paid side of it. So
Okay. Anything to add there, Mike, about the organic lead generation that is being enjoyed by implementation.com?
No, I think it was important because, we thought about going out and paying for advertising and getting leads. But the problem with that is the conversion rate is so low because they may not want to hear what we have to say. We just got in front of them through paid. So I think organic for us is very important. And to be quite honest, we have a pretty long list of previous clients that we just let go cold, and we need to build up that list again.
Okay. Yeah, it takes a lot of work to build that organic lead generation, but it really works hard for you once it's grounded and done. Okay.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I may add, Debbie, is also you have to look at your blended CPL, right? Your cost per lead.
Cost per lead. Okay.
So you have to look at a blended model, so if you're going to pay and then if you have organic, then what does that blended look like? Sometimes it's okay, you're spending money in the beginning because you don't have any traffic, you don't have any leads, and your sales team is sitting there and they need leads, and it's fine. But even down the road, you have to build that organic channel and then start spending money. So then you have a blended cost per lead, which is how much is paid, how much is organic, because at the end of the day, you have to manage the blended CPL versus the volume of the leads, So, there is permutations and combinations, and then you're going to hit a ceiling, right, when it comes to paid marketing. And then after that, it's a diminishing curve after that. So,
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Mike, what processes and systems can ensure you that digital marketing is going per plan so everyone is aligned?
Yeah, so I think when we started the foray into digital marketing,
yes,
we typically run large-scale transformation projects for our clients. So we tried to bring some of that same rigor to this process. So one, agreeing on what the plan is, what are we going to do week by week, what are the key milestones, what are some things we can negotiate on, what are things we are absolutely going to do, putting in a business process, a cadence, where we meet, in some cases, a smaller team daily, in other cases weekly, and then a communication out to the greater team on a monthly basis around what we were able to achieve, so we keep people on board. So having a project plan, a schedule, all of that I think is required. And the other thing from a process perspective that we had to learn quickly is we all want to be perfect. And a group of engineers in particular really want to get everything perfect. And sometimes when you're 80% ready, you just say, you know what, we're going to go forward and we're going to take it and learn from it. And so from a process standpoint, that was really important to us. We're 80% ready. We've done as much as we think we can to date. Let's go for it. Test and learn. And so that was very important. From a system perspective, we didn't have any digital marketing tools or system per se, and we started small. We started with platforms that allowed us to do what we needed to do, and nothing more than that, because we needed to get some quick wins. And so we've actually upgraded the systems that we're using over time with no loss, right? We had a vision that we're going to use different platforms or systems in the future, but we knew today, let's not build this this monster. Let's build something that we can work with today. Okay, so communicating to your teams is imperative to make sure everybody knows what's going on. Daily, weekly, and monthly at different levels of detail. Okay, right.
Yeah, and from our side, like from a marketing services side / agency side, we had to make sure that everyone is tracking with our plans, right? Like this is what we are planning to achieve in the next 1 month, 60 days, 90 days, 120 days, and then how can you get it into the on a daily task level, and then how does it go back to our team on the agency side on how everyone is going to execute, including you writing content. Where we knew that we're going to have struggle with always is we needed the business inputs. because the business transformation, the performance excellence industry that implementation engine is it's not a straightforward industry, right? So it has
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of it
Very
has
complex.
it has a lot of technicalities involved, right?
Sure.
And it has its background in Six Sigma, Kaizen, and all those glorious things. So it's not like somebody can just write it. So what you need is you need business inputs. And again, it goes back to the original point of power of small wins to get company buy-in. And only if that happens, then people are gonna willing to contribute to you. So right now when we email, and everyone is wonderful to work with, right? But when we
Oh, they're wonderful.
yeah, so when we email someone, they're more than happy to help, right?
Sure, sure.
And that way, so yeah, of course we use a lot of tools to align, but at the same time, keeping everyone on track with the plans and processes is important too. And does everything go per plan? No, no, mistakes happen. But then you get back on track, and
Yeah.
I'm the first one to admit that. So yeah.
All right. So Bob has a saying that if marketing isn't measurable, it's just fluff. So he really loves to have those metrics, to measure the data, to come up with future objectives for the business, which is so vital. So it's fascinating, all the metrics he uses. So let's talk a little bit about the metrics used to measure the digital marketing initiatives that implementation engineers used. You want to talk about that?
Is it? Yeah, I mean, these are the results. I think it's a question for me, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we measure all these different things like traffic, referral traffic, dropout rates, impressions, clicks per page.
Clicks per page.
Yeah, yeah. But I think the way to measure any progress as you go through a very linear way of doing it is otherwise it's just activities, right? So the first thing you do is how much assets, marketing assets did you create, right? That's number
Yes.
one. Once you have assets, then how much traffic did you generate? And after you generate traffic, how many leads did you generate, and from what sources, which is attribution? And then once you do that, then finally, how many deals if you did, if at all, and a lot of the deals and the sales usually depends on every company's sales cycle. So usually those are the metrics at a broader level that we work against. But I think what we like to do is we also like to put some stake in the ground that okay, this is how much you can generate in terms of leads and in terms of traffic and results over time. So once you follow that model or a framework, things follow through typically. And they should be, right? So I think, yeah, so that is what how we go about it, in terms of measuring metrics. So for example, on the content side, it's creating content, but then how many pieces of content did you produce from one type of content, and then what was the result out of it, the traffic, the leads, or what have you. So those are very, very critical points too. So if you do a webinar, how do you measure it? Well, you measure it based on the registrations, how many people watched it, engagement, things like that. So many different ways to go about it. So
Oh yeah, and engineers love data. So you want to talk anything about the data that y'all created from your website and looking at that in terms of your business objectives, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob hit most of the key points. The first was measuring activity because we didn't expect our outcomes day one, but actually in month one and month 2 and 3, we did have outcomes that we were looking for that we were able to achieve. So one is you have to have metrics around the leading indicators and also the lagging indicators. So now we're more focused on the lagging indicators because we feel that the leading indicators are where they should be. So for us, it's really how many leads are we putting into our funnel. And then once we get those leads into our funnel, how well are they performing from top of the funnel to deal, and what do we need to do to generate more, but even more so, improve the conversion rate.
Okay.
And so those are the key metrics that we're looking at.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Anything else you want to say about that, Bob, before we move to the Q&A?
No, I know. I think with the sometimes you want to have the volume first. Once you have the volume, then you can work on the quality, which is the quality of leads. And a lot of companies ask us that too. Like, what is the lead quality? And we look at it. I'm like, you don't have enough volume right now because you don't have the liberty to cherry pick, so focus on the volume, and then the quality also starts coming in. And those are some of the discussions we had going into the whole project. But yeah, so it's but yeah.
Well, we've got a few questions here, and thank y'all again for joining us. But here's one from Wendy O to all the panelists and attendees. And she asks, implementation is a consulting firm, but she's asking, how about a product? How do you apply thought leaders or personas to products?
Same way, if I may answer. Like for example, what I mean, you mean by product, physical, tangible product, or a software
Yes.
product?
More of a physical, tangible, like a B2C type product.
Yeah, so look at Zappos, right? Like Zappos is a classic example before it was bought over by Amazon. Now, the persona of a Zappos is a woman. 60 or 70% of the buyers are women, right? Who make 150,000 or $125,000 or more. So these people are highly educated, and these all data is available, by the way. They about, I think, 60% have graduate degrees, and about 50% has their bachelor's degree. So these are those people, and they are the first adopters, right?
Early adopters, yeah.
Early adopters. So you already have a persona, and based on that persona, you're gonna devise a pricing plan, right? And then based on that, you're gonna create your marketing communications, which drives exactly that. Because if Zappos or anyone starts selling products to everyone under the sun, then you're not going to have a very great, precise strategy. I've made mistakes like that in the past, and that's when you realize it. So yes, it doesn't matter if it's a product or if it's B2B or B2C. As I said, we all are humans, right? So the process and the front end is the same. The only real thing changes in B2B or B2C again is the buying. So for example, in the B2B, you sign up to generate a lead, and that becomes a lead, right? On the B2C, people sign up, but they end up buying the product. So it's just the buying that happens, but otherwise it's the same thing, So yes, I think.
Okay. And Mike, just talking about generating leads and doing conversions, have you seen a big change in your belly-to-belly contact that you've done before, and now having the option of picking up leads out of the website and the marketing funnel and aligning sales and marketing? So can you talk a little bit about how you take those leads and give them to the salespeople and how that works out for you?
Yeah, so I think at first we weren't sure of the process because we didn't have one previously. So we had to build out that process. So once we generate a lead, what's the best way to handle it? Because some are targeted, some come through that we weren't expecting. Certain industries or clients, we weren't targeting them, but they were interested in our product or service. So how we move that from stage to stage is there is a handoff, and there's a handshake more than a handoff, because once that lead is who we want, it's qualified, sales accepts it, we do have a handoff where it transfers, where they then take that activity to the point where if it moves forward, great. If it doesn't move forward, then it goes back into our nurture pool. So there's another handshake where they say, you know what, the client's not ready yet today, or maybe it's not the right fit for our company, but maybe in the future, their next company or next role, it's a good fit. So it goes back into our nurture process. So I think we had to develop that, handshake process that we both agreed to, because really we're just there in marketing trying to get leads for our salespeople to close deals. And so we need to work together on that.
And some of the case studies, some of the products like the thought papers, that helps nurture those leads. So you build trust with your online presence when people read it and they see what you're all about, and it kind of warms up the lead and nurtures it.
The other process that's important is the people who are meeting with our customers, again, are people out at client sites doing the good work. And then there are business development executives who are understanding or hearing what our clients' needs are. So that has to get back to us, right? And we can help improve and target our marketing to match what our teams are hearing. So that's an important part of the process also.
So you learn what the pain points are with your customers, what their needs are and their desires, so you can better address them.
Correct.
Awesome. Bob, you have anything to add there?
No, I think Mike covered it. But yeah, exactly. I think what you just said is, needs and desires, wants, all of those things, right? And this happens in marketing all the time, where we are trying to think of our product and put it and push it down people's throat the way we want it, but we don't step back and see what is their problem. And it's in this world, it's all about what's in it for me, right? But as marketers, we really have to start thinking what problems our target audience is facing, right? If we know that problem, that's very critical. Now, if they have a problem called X, then how they are describing that problem. Because once you know how they're going to describe that problem, that means you've got some search intent keywords. And based on that, you can create a lot of content, a lot of SEO, and a lot of educational materials around it. So I think that's exactly what it is. And only when you know other people's problem and you come in, again, the intent has to be good. It cannot be fluff, right? Then I think you can solve a lot of those problems,
So ask your audience what's in it for them, what are their needs, what are their desires, and then tailor your content for them.
Not ask, but find out intelligently what that could be. You wouldn't have the luxury of having to ask that. Like, for example, I don't think Mike will have the luxury of going to the CEO of Boeing or whoever it is and asking them, hey, what are the problems, right? But we'll have to figure that out, and that comes in from very different sources of marketing and market intelligence.
So you put it out there, test it, maybe do it again. So there's a lot of marketing testing that goes on.
That's A/B testing, trial and error. That's trial and error A/B testing. But I don't think we at Bob Tripathi are those marketers where we throw everything on the wall, and if one sticks, one sticks. Yeah, no. I think over the years, I think we have enough expertise to know what are the pain points and going after that. But then what you do, then you go into the MVT of things, which is multivariate. But there are a lot of marketing folks, and that's why marketing sometimes get a bad rap too, is because people have all these different tactics and they throw everything on the wall. The one that sticks, oh, this worked. Well, you didn't know which one worked, right?
Right.
So unless you go with a clear direction, then so there is an audience resonation, but not at a top level. It's only once you go into a tactics. So. Sorry, I can talk about it all day long.
I know. That's where those long-term objectives come in. Like Mike said, sit down and strategize it. So I do invite everybody on our webinar to go visit implementation.com, see what they're all about, and also tripathi.com. And I want to thank our speakers, Mike Petsas, so much for joining us. We so much appreciate it, and you're just a pleasure to work with. And Bob, thank you for all your insights. And this is Deborah Warner. And thank you for joining us today. And we would love to hear from you. So pick up the phone, send us an email, check us out, and we'd love to hear about what you're doing with your digital marketing and how you're going about expanding your footprint. So thanks again to everybody that joined, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abby. Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.